So check the stream on your phone before I start.
I don't know how to do that.
Just go to the stream on your phone and
Here, you press it.
check it out. Oh, okay. All right. So we should be live now. Hypothetically, it only took, what, 20 minutes? Let me go here to make sure we could see ourselves. Right? Let me put this on so you could see the comments. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is just the absolute best. In it. Touch Base Tuesdays. Volume 2. Nope, that's not what I want. What I want is Volume 3. So let me go on your Instagram. You could go ahead and chat with the people that are...
Okay, so we've just had the worst 20 minutes ever trying to figure out how to
very generous
set this up.
For you to say we. Very generous.
Listen, I don't proclaim to be a tech expert.
How does it sound, guys? How does it look? Does it look good? Does it sound great? Because right now...
Sebastian, hey, Seb, how does is the sound all right, Seb? Can you hear us properly? Oh, that's good. It sounds good. We're perfect.
I'm so ecstatic right now.
Okay, you a leader in then. Go for it.
Hi, guys. Welcome to a Touch Base Tuesdays. This is Volume 3. So what this is, it's a nice little interaction with Peter Turner, the world's best perceptionist, the world's best mentalist. I've seen him work, and it's frustrating because I don't like him. He bullies me for my height, my hairline, my appearance, and yet I see him constantly nail performances. So
thank you for the cup of tea.
You're welcome.
So we did put the feelers out on Instagram. We asked you to ask questions. This is Touch Base Tuesday. I'm still in Pasadena in California. If you're in LA, I'm here till the 2nd. I'm traveling up to Vegas on Wednesday or tomorrow. Is that tomorrow night? We travel to Vegas. We travel to Vegas tomorrow night. We're in town for one day. We get to meet the incredible Frank Dukes, which if you don't know who Frank Dukes is, he was the inspiration for the film Bloodsport, which were played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. And he had a series of records that he created. And when he, I say created, a series of records that were never been matched from the Kumite. But yeah.
Well, that's what I'm looking forward to after dealing with technical issues for 20 minutes. I'm excited to meet Frank Dukes, the legendary Frank Dukes, and hopefully watch you perform some things for him. And maybe have him perform things for you.
Well, that's the bit I can't wait for, is just to see what he could do. I mean, I talked to him on the phone, and the guy had some incredible stories, and that's the bit. I'm going to take my pen and paper, I'm going to sit and just listen to him going, because some of the things that he said were so out there.
So I guess let's just start right off the bat. We have some questions on Instagram. We're still able to receive new questions that you guys have asked. I forget the camera is there. I always... it's a bad thing when you look at yourself because you're not really connecting with the audience. So a little life hack here from me, believe it or not, you can learn things from me, is to look directly at the camera, not at the monitor. So now I'm interacting with you. You could leave little Instagram questions if you want on Peter's story, if you're a follower of his. I believe you're at Peter Turner.
I don't know my own Instagram. I think it's Peter_Turner.
Yeah, if you look up Peter Turner, you're going to be able to ask. We have what is probably 1,000 questions that we're going to go through. Some regarding some bits of mentalism, some regarding my appearance, some regarding just general questions like your favorite movie, maybe hanging out in Florida, little things like that.
Let's go for it. Let's run through. And if you've got any questions that you want to ask in the comments, we can see the comment section. We have got some questions that have come in, so I'll get Pigcake to go through those as well. And this is just a good way for you to be able to stay in contact with me. Now, whilst Pigcake's finding a good question, we are still filming content for the 2nd episode. We've got enough content now probably for 2 or 3 episodes. But the thing out here is, because we're on the move continually, it's so difficult to be able to sit and edit anything. And then we've also got some exciting news about something that we've been working on called Inner Pinch, which we will get to later on.
Okay, you're already outing it. That's interesting. Well, the first question here is by Tiarn McKevitt. And he says, what would be the go-to effect with a marked deck?
Using a marked deck. So I think this leads me on to a bigger philosophy that I find interesting, and I express this all the time, and this is something that I always say whenever I'm sat working with anybody or whenever I'm consulting on anything. The very first thing that I do is take any concept that they've thrown at me and then seen what it looks like from the reverse perspective. So what I mean by that is, and I've probably said this in the last video and you probably heard me say it 1,000 times, but is there a more interesting plot when you reverse something? So let's take a spoon bend. When you take a spoon bend, what you're demonstrating that you have the power to leave something in a disheveled state. You're using your superpowers to bend this spoon. The be all and end all is that you hand the souvenir out, and that's the end of the effect. But I think it's really interesting if you said to somebody, you know, I want to share with you something that's been bestowed upon me. So I want you to think of a problem or a stress that makes you feel like the weight of the world's weighing you down. So you get them to think of that, and I say, if you could sum this up in 1 or 2 words, I want you to take this pen and I want you to write it in the bowl of the spoon. So they write this problem in the bowl of the spoon. And I say, now, therapists say that when you're looking from the outside in, it's easy to give advice. But the problem is that you're so engrossed in the situation that you're finding it difficult to be able to find any sort of resolution. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this spoon as a metaphor for you to be able to see your problems from the outside looking in. Then you bend the spoon, right? So now you get them to hold this spoon. You say, now I already know that you've got a few ways that you've thought about dealing with this situation. You've just not enacted any of them because for you, you're struggling to think about which one it is that you should actively enact. So I want you to look at the spoon and just focus on the problem and imagine a few different scenarios on how you'd solve this problem. And now the spoon starts to straighten itself, right? And you say, you can see already your problems are starting to straighten themselves out by taking that first thought of just committing to one of these routes or avenues. So now you're finished with this straightened spoon. What you do is you take it, you bend it, and you say, I want you to go home, I want you to take that. And every time you make a little bit of headway with this problem, just straighten it a little bit.
Okay.
So now months and months later, they end up with a straight spoon, but they always attribute you to helping solve the problem. That's the same when it comes to an invisible deck. Instead of sitting there and saying, you know, I took one playing card, I turned it round and I slotted it back in the deck. That's the script that everybody uses. I think there's a much more interesting thing you could say just by reversing that script. You could say, you know, I was sat playing with the cards earlier and I was dealing them face up one at a time onto the table. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I just stopped at one card. I never even looked at what it was. I dropped it face down in a face-up deck and continued to deal the rest of the cards face up, and they're inside that box. So I want you all to think of a card at this table, and I want you to pass the box around the table until one of you just feels compelled to stop. So the cards get passed around, and then we stop. If I'd have stopped with you, what would your card have been? What would your card have been but yours? Now we take them out and we go through, and that's the one card that's face down in a face-up deck. The script seems much bigger. It makes it feel like it's not just I took one card and put it face up and I know what it is. Fate decided that'd be the one card that would face down. Fate decided you'd all think of the cards that you thought of. Fate decided that we'd stop here and we get a free effect. So there's a reason that I'm going off on this tangent, because with a marked deck, what everybody does is they go, oh, take a card out, think of a card, take it out and put it on the table. And then they go into the whole mind reading bit. They act like they're reading a mind. And I think there's something much more interesting that you can do if you apply a couple of principles from the likes of Michael Murray, a couple of principles from the likes of Kenneth Nepper and other people like that, and then this reversal technique. If you look at somebody and you've performed a few effects and you say, look, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to teach you how to get in touch with your instincts. So I want you to look at me. I'm thinking of a playing card. So the performer says, I'm thinking of a card. So just first start with the colour. So look right at me. The colour's not right. So I'm going to help you out this one time. The colour's not right. Change the colour. Now get the suit in mind. Now, do you feel that's the right suit?
I'll say yes.
Okay. Now think of the value. I'm going to ask you, do you think that you're bang on, relatively close, or miles out in terms of the value? What do you think?
I'm bang on.
You think you're bang on this time? 100%? Go through the deck and take out the card you think I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Go through the deck.
And place it down. So now this is a tool just to confirm what you're thinking of. But the beauty here now is when I look at that marking, when I look down at that marking, let's say I see that it's a club. Well, what do I know? I know that you first started on a red card.
Yeah.
So I look at you and I say, now, if we were really in tune, I'm hoping that you change your mind from a red card to a black one. You first thought of a red one and I asked you to change to black, correct? Well, I get a hit there for free.
Yeah.
Right? And I say, now the suit I was thinking of was the club. Now let's say it's the 6 of clubs. I say, I'm hoping that you've done this right. And I pick it up and I look away. I go, we're thinking of the 6 of clubs, and I turn it round now for everybody else. But that also gives me one little extra thing that I can do. Let's say I said to you, you said, no, I feel I'm close. And I say, okay, well, how many do you feel you're out by? The moment that you say 2, what that allows me to do is now get a gauge of the fact that if you were a 6, that you were going to think of a 4 or an 8.
Yeah, that's great.
Right? So I go, okay, so you think you were out by 2. And I go, when I get to the end, I go, you didn't think I was thinking of a 4, did you? And then you're going to go either yes or no. If you go no, I go, good. Because what I did is I saw your brain went to an 8 and then changed at the last second. I'm thinking of a 6, hopefully you are. So now I get the hit of what they were all. So it seems like our brains were in tune with each other because we've confirmed that they changed from one color to another color. We've also then at that point confirmed that they've got the right suit. And now we've also confirmed that they thought they were close, and it's a good job they changed their mind because we've ended up bang on together just by using your instincts.
Yeah.
Then you can finish with a little line that any time you find yourself in a situation where you need to instinctively act, if you just harness those feelings and trust yourself, I promise you the outcome will be as perfect as this.
That's great.
Right? So that's how I'd use it. I always think about these things in reverse, right? I always think about how can I look at this in reverse? So normally everybody takes a card out, puts it down and uses it in that regard. I wouldn't. I'd flip it so that I'm either using it as a piece of influence or I'm reading them. Oh, sorry, or they're reading me.
Yeah.
Right? Hopefully that answers that question.
We did that. We went to a house and there were a bunch of kids there, and we did that. So we turned it on them, where they're now the magician, and they found our cards. So they had, we had them pick, or we picked 2 cards, and then we put it back. They shuffled it, and then they very emphatically took them out of the deck. And because we read the markings, now they get the credit for being able to find the card. And the other thing that I saw you do, just before you keep going, is we were at a bar, and you did it with a tarot presentation. So you did it where you went through the, there are 4 seasons, 4 suits in a deck. If you add up the numbers, it adds up to 365. And then you talked about the lunar cycles, and then you turned it on them. So you said the heart represents love, the club represents work, spade represents work, club represents.
That's it. So basically, what you're doing is you're framing up each of the values. So it's called cartomancy. And the idea is that we had somebody in a bar that were talking about tarot, and what that instantly did, because they brought their own tarot deck, is made the playing cards that were at the bar. I didn't carry the cards, but the playing cards were at the bar. It made the playing cards feel like they were pale in comparison. It were a trick. So instead of trying to dismiss the cards entirely because they were already introduced into the situation, what my brain did, and you saw this, is to instantly jump into it and go, it's really interesting that playing cards were originally used in tarot, but it were called cartomancy. And I don't know if you know this, but the playing cards go all the way back to the Egyptian periods. And I can tell you how they framed them up. So I don't know if you know this, but a deck of cards is a lot like a calendar. If you look at the suits, there's 4 suits, there's 4 seasons. There's 13 values, there's 13 lunar cycles. If you were to add each of the values of the playing cards up, it comes to 364. But you take the bridge total of the Joker, and that makes 365. This were a pocket calendar that somebody could carry around to give readings. And if you don't know how these are used in readings, now this is the bit that's important for you with the markings, is that if you were to take the club, that would represent somebody that's bubbly and outgoing. The spades would be somebody who's hermital, reserved. The hearts would be somebody that's empathetic, loving, and the diamonds would represent somebody that's sharp-witted, business-minded, and intelligent. So I want you to think of the suit that best represents you. If you feel yourself a bit as the life and soul of the party, you might go for a club. If it's a heart, you'd be somebody that's loving. If it's a spade, it's hermital, and a diamond, sharp-witted, and intelligent. Now I know already by looking at you, there's a few of those suits that best represent you, but you need to commit to one of them. Now the values, Ace to a 5 is somebody that's underconfident. 6 to 10 is middle of the road, the glue that holds social situations together, and a Jack all the way up to a King is somebody that secretes confidence. So I want you to think about the value that best represents you. Go through the deck, take it out and place it down. Well, now the marking, what that's done is that's told me they feel that they're loving, they feel they're empathetic, they feel that they're bubbly and outgoing. The values told me where their confidence levels are in life. So now it's not about the card. The card gives me the marking or the indication to be able to tell them about themselves without failing. So now sprinkle in a couple of Barnum statements. So once you sprinkle in those Barnum statements, you've got this really interesting reading that can never fail. And if you do start to feel that you're veering off and going down a path that is miles and miles out, you've got the definitive hit of the playing card on the end to finish.
So you have that parachute, which is always great.
That's it. It just gives you that safety net.
You did that. I think that's one of the first sort of routines you explained. I remember seeing you with like a white shirt. You had a board behind you. And,
we're on Devil in Disguise. It was a long time ago with that. So it's mad to think that was probably over 12 years ago.
But it still works exceptionally well, especially for Mark Deck. I know in a bar you did it with a Force. But you have
no, I didn't. I peeked.
You peeked.
So I didn't have a mark deck, but I would use the mark deck for that. I just peeked. I got the card, and as I were lifting it up, I just got an underneath peek, a flick peek, and then it got to the chest.
You always do that, which is ridiculous. Anytime you hold the deck, you immediately peek.
I just need to know. I like to know that, So it's but yeah, we're a peek, and also then I did something with the tarot deck, which then lined up exactly with the cards, which closed the situation. But I sort of feel what I'm going to do in the situation. So as soon as the tarot deck got introduced, that's it. Yeah, we're called Getting to Know You. And then they were getting to know you to, or getting to know you, which
Mhm.
were changing the playing cards for the seasons, actually changing them for the seasons,
Mhm.
so that when I framed them up, like if you look at the spade, it looks like a leaf, which would represent fall or autumn.
Mhm.
Now, when they put their card down, I were down to 3 star signs.
Yeah. So you know.
So I could then just use the a little bit of fishing to work out the star signs. But let's take a look at some of these in the chat. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's have a look at what we've got, because there's hundreds of things coming through. I don't really know how to work this. Do I just scroll up?
No, not there. You scroll up.
I'll let you do it, because I'm
Yeah,
gonna
look at that.
I'm gonna end up closing the stream.
Well, I'm your producer here, so.
Okay. So here we go. I really don't know how to work tech, but let's have a look at this. So to keep going up, like there's a lot more above that. So
That's
we'll
what she
go.
said. Okay. Let's go through
Keep
here.
going, keep going, keep going, keep going. We're all right. We're going to try to answer everybody's today, so we'll fire through these.
Well, these are mostly comments.
That's
This
okay.
one-
Good. Sounds clear. Perfect. We're good. So with that.
I understand. Pig cake never as close to good as Peter. Nice. Okay, so
thank
you
you
get
for
a
that.
nice ego boost for
What's
that.
someone say? Go down to the first Penguin release. It says there, no other way. There we go. So it says, "Hi guys, I have my first Mentalism release being filmed with Penguin next week, and I had a question for Pete about a specific technique. What's the best way to get in contact?" I'm available on Instagram. If you send me a message on Instagram, or if you leave a comment to say that you watch this video on one of the posts and to message you, I'll message you. Because the problem with Instagram and social media is so many comments get lost in the spam boxes, and I don't know how to stop that. I'm not really technologically minded,
annoying.
so but I'd love to see what you're working on. I'd love to see what it is that you're doing. But yeah, so go back up. There were a lot of questions up there.
Well, here it says, got to meet both of these gentlemen at the Magic Apple. Truly a classy guy. Hi from Scott, guys.
Hey Scott, it was great to meet you. We were hanging out the other day at the Magic
Apple.
Magic Apple, that's what it is. Yeah, the Magic Apple store in Los Angeles, which I don't know why that just eluded me then. I nearly said the Magic Castle, which is also in California. But if you keep going right up.
Well, it says here, what's your favorite pint?
Pint.
Pint.
Like a beer?
Like a beer.
Or Stella. It's got to be wife beater.
Wife beater material.
That's what it's called, wife beater in England. But Stella's very nice. Keep going up to the top.
Will there be something like How to Read Minds 3?
Not really, I don't think. So just to touch base on that, I still work with Illusionist. I still talk to Illusionist. I were on the phone with Geraint yesterday in the car for about 20 minutes. Geraint's, they're good people. They're good friends of mine. We talk all the time. I don't think there'll be a How to Read Minds 3. And the reason I don't think there'll be a How to Read Minds 3 is because How to Read Minds 2 were a very difficult situation to navigate. So How to Read Minds 1, I pretty much had the reins on that situation. And the only thing that I didn't get a say in is the SP cards. And they got signed off on my behalf whilst I were in Italy. So at the time I were consulting in Italy, and I were also doing a masterclass and a workshop in Italy. So they were the only things that got signed off without my say-so. And then How to Read Minds 2 were more of a collaboration. So the effects inside there were decided on as a compromise between myself and Illusionist. And some of the effects in there I wasn't massively a fan of, because it wasn't the way that I do things. And I always wanted to present those sets the way that I do it. Now that doesn't mean that I wouldn't go off and I wouldn't create, not sets, but projects like that on my own. But right now there's other things that are on the cards that are much bigger that I can't really talk about. But I am actively in Hollywood taking meetings, and that might give a little sprinkle or an inkling into what it is that I'm working on right now. And that's why I've been out here so long.
And other miscellaneous projects that
which we'll get into in a bit.
Yeah, look at that.
So scroll right back up to it's firing down so fast. There were another question I did see that I wanted to answer, because I thought we're going to keep going.
I love the kits. Let's see here. This
There
one's
we go.
Star Force.
Whichever. There was a few more above that. Sorry about this. We're just learning how to navigate this together, because Pig Cake doesn't listen to me.
Of course, yeah. That's well. You could look at your phone as well.
No, but these are different.
No, look, it's the
so
same.
let's have a look. Pass it.
You go to. I'm filtering it by all messages.
Okay, let me have
There
a
you
look.
go, buddy.
There we go.
Imagine dealing with this for the past. We've been here for what, 20 days? We're already bickering at each other.
Do you know my favorite thing is? You just asked the question. Imagine dealing with this, and I'm trying to answer the viewers' questions, and you're skipping them. So imagine dealing with this.
Okay. All right, I'll give you that, Peter. There's also a lot of questions on Instagram.
Okay, we're going to go through all of them. Don't worry. Tell about corporate mentalism. What should show to drunk viewers? Okay, so that's from Vladimir. What should we perform to drunk viewers? I always say play it safe. Like I'd say with anything like that, one thing that I found that happens a lot, and I fell into this trap a long time ago, is trying to appease drunk spectators or trying to appease skeptics. And there's an expression in the real world, and it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we grease the squeaky wheel and then neglect the rest. But I always found that if there's a drunk viewer or a drunk spectator, to either make them the hero so that then they're not arguing with what you're doing, or make them the judge and do the mentalism on other people. Okay, you want to see this? We'll do it under test conditions. You're going to be the judge. You're going to watch. You're going to adjudicate. And then you move on and do something with other people. And what happens there is you tend to find that when you're working on stuff like that, they're the ones then, if you give them the power, because they're Billy Big Bollocks, they go away and they more often than not will sing your praises because they've managed to do it.
Yeah.
So corporate mentalism, it's something that I don't book that often unless the money's right. So there's sometimes I'll do it and I'll go, you know what, the money's amazing. I'm not going to turn this down. I'd be stupid. I'm in the area. Like, why would I not do that? But a lot of the time now, I prefer consulting. Like, I prefer creating for other people, you know. So what's this one? Cyforce card, 100%. Hi, Pete. I saw your interactive card trick on YouTube. You said think of a small number. Think of a card suit that goes well with a small number. Okay, 100%. I think he's saying it worked, which is great. I tweaked it now and it works 10 out of 10. Great. Like, you've got it. That's it. Whenever there's a Cyforce, just find what's working for you, adjust it a little bit. Through this medium, it's really difficult because you can't get... and you'll have seen me do this, I sort of get a feel for people when I'm with them and I can nudge them in the right direction. And I'd say that one of my greatest abilities, and I don't say that I've got many, but one of them is knowing when something's slightly off and being able to just guide the person, because I can see it in their face now and I can see it in their body language and I'm reading them for real. Like if anybody said to me 10 years ago, like, do you think that body language is, and it does play a big part in it, watching how long somebody takes to decide on something, watching the confusion on somebody's face, watching when to give them an extra instruction and nudge them. So
there's
that's
always
that.
options. You always have, you go through that Queen of Hearts force a lot, which is pretty bang on. You also could, at the end of the day, just equivoke. Just go through a full deck equivoke, which it used to be a very labored process, I think, back when people were starting to come up with different ways. And now, you know, we've sort of come to a point where it's innovated to the point where now it's just maybe 2 or 3 questions and you're down to a single card.
That's it. It can be very quick. You know, you break those processes. I always look at everything like a binary, and it's got to be that quick. First is color, then suit, then picture, then value to picture, and then straight down. So you can be down very quick, and one of them can be an invisible action. So with 3 questions, you can be down to, you know, you can be right down to the card in no time at all. But yeah. So Tim Bardsley said, "What's the best Billy Peak books or videos so I can learn, and also what Harley Davidson do I have?" So the Harley that I have is a Heritage Softail, but it's a really nice one. It's all chrome on one side. I sprayed it myself. I've spent a lot of time and labour building that thing. Notice how I answered that question first as well. I love my bikes. So we went out to Red Rock Canyon on bikes. And
yeah, it was an experience. It was the first time I ever rode a Harley. It was a Harley that did not fit me. I ride a V-Star, a Yamaha 650 V-Star. This was a 1200. I forgot what the name of the Harley was. There's a kick. There's a kick there.
Yours were a small bike.
Mine was a smaller bike, yes, but for me, I'm a 5'3" individual. So for me, I'm not used to it. As a matter of fact, the owner of the rental place, when he saw me pull out of the parking lot, he told us, "Oh, I almost stopped you because I was having a hard time trying to navigate." And of course, Peter, being pushy Peter, pushed me to taking the bike all the way through the mountains and down some very nefarious trails, of which you were doing about 100 and I was doing maybe 30. That's conservative, down those little windy trails. So it was definitely a life-changing experience. And when I go home and ride my V-Star again, I'm going to have a newfound appreciation for what I have as to what is potentially out there in terms of speed.
Well, it'll feel a lot slower.
It would,
safe.
but I feel safer on that
You'll be
rather
feeling
than
safe.
Going to 50 in second gear. It's not necessarily something that I'm a fan of.
Okay, so I'm going to keep going through these, and then we'll jump onto the Instagram. So, am I planning to come to Russia? So the answer to that is that I'm interested in going anywhere in the world. I'd love to go to Moscow. I'd love to film in Moscow. I'd love to see what's out there. So the answer to that question is probably. I've got a lot of traveling that I'm going to be doing. Like I said, there's exciting things happening. So who knows? Any tips on what to do if the spectator finds out how something like Midas touch was done, or if something like the hand stick just doesn't work, because I failed it every time so far? So Sebastian, it's a good question. Sometimes with a hand stick, it's about having what I call the magic eye, and that's a very difficult thing to get. And it's almost a feel-based thing. And anybody that's done hypnosis for any period of time or anything suggestion-based, you sort of get a feel for who it's going to work with. You're not just hitting an open. And don't get me wrong, there's still times when, you know, I'll try to stick somebody's hand to a table and I'll find that it's not stuck the way that I want it to stick. It's very, very few and far between that happens now. But when that does happen, I don't let it phase me. Nothing should ever phase you. It's just this. You just go, perfect. That tells me everything I need to know about you. I've got your concentration level down. I know exactly how suggestible you are. And now what you're going to do is move into something that's a lot more solid. And it could be a pseudo hypnosis piece, right? That now suggests that you've now learned their suggestibility level and how to work their mind. And now when you do something that's pseudo-based directly after that, whether it's reverse gestalt moment or a hypno piece where you're making them forget a card, or the magnetic fingers, it feels like that were always the pre-test, the baseline that you'd use when you hook somebody up to a polygraph to be able to figure that out. So that's that.
A lot of bits on it too.
Just well, that's it. Go look up Anthony Jacquin's work, look up Aaron Alexander's work. The head hacking stuff on YouTube is a great resource to learn from if you just want to be entertained. You know, there's a lot of amazing things in that regard. To answer your question about people finding out about what it is that you do, just it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, right? So when I say it's a good thing, I don't mean it's good that people are finding out what you do, but when you're succeeding, you're not learning, right? Because you go, oh, it was great, I did this. The best lessons I've ever had in life are the times where things have failed,
of course,
and I've failed a million times. Like, so it's not like I'm constantly successful. It's not like everything's been successful. There's a saying, you have to do 10,000 hours of anything to get good at it. And I'm very open and honest about the fact that when I started out in this community, like I was given a microphone, I think too early. Like, and I've said that very openly. Like, I used to joke with Carl Scott all the time, and he knew I was very open and honest about it. Like, you were like, to sum up your career, it's very much like the conversation between Buzz and Woody on the bed in Toy Story, where he says you can't fly, and Buzz says I can fly, and he jumps off the bed, hits the ball, goes up on a light, spins around, and comes back. And then Woody says, no, that's falling with style, and that's pretty much been something that were constant throughout my career till about 4 or 5 years ago. And now I don't mean to sound like I'm being arrogant in any way, shape, or form, but I'm a different beast now. Like, it's a different variable. Like, I really honed my craft, and I really, not to say that I've done this for 30 odd years. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't like I couldn't do this stuff, but some of the claims that I was making were very bold and very confident. And I stood people in their face and said, I can do this. And then at the time it was like either hit or miss, but now, like, I've reined that back. I know what my lane is. I know where my strengths are. I've found my weaknesses. I'm open about my weaknesses. You won't see me fail because I know exactly how to get out of every situation that I'm navigating myself around. And that's what I'd say is just keep doing what you're doing. Make bold claims. Don't be scared of trying to create legends. Don't be scared of putting yourself out there. Don't be scared of saying what you want and putting out, not in a manifestation sense, but putting out into the ether what it is that you want. And then also just being bold.
Dare to be bold.
That were always my ethos. That's what I was saying. Look, in those, you look back at those book titles and it were giving you a clue as to everything that were happening in my career at the time. Like, look, imagine never having read a mentalism book because you couldn't afford to read mentalism books. Never being able to read books because you were living week to week and you were struggling to feed yourself. And then writing a mentalism book and not even having an understanding of how the rest of the mentalism world operates and works. And that was very much the truth for my first book. I didn't understand. I'd not read. I wasn't experienced. And the only experience I had were talking to Kent and Nepper and jamming with people online and then writing a book. And then all of a sudden being thrust into this stage where I were expected to keep up with the best in the industry. And then a few months after that, being thrown into the Penguin Live. So imagine being flown from one side of the world to the other and not really having a grounding or foundation in this world and just doing it my way, you know what I mean? And then learning the craft afterwards. Do you know what I mean? So I'd say to you, read everything you can, look at everything you can, throw yourself into as many situations as you can, deal with skeptics, deal with people that don't believe, deal with hard asses, and just come out the other side of it. Let people ask you questions like this. Put yourself in a position where you have to be under fire. And that's the best way to learn. So we'll keep moving on. Let's have a look here.
Well, Midas, his question was also in regards to Midas Touch, which just seeing it and seeing it in the worst scenarios possible, it's not a trick that it's almost like practicing a script. It's practicing a card trick. Once you know the script, once you know the lines that you need to nail, it's almost self-working if you say that, because there's only one move that you have to do and then just some lines that you have to memorize. So it's like really learning a card trick. If you're failing at that, it's practice. It's something that you got to practice. Now the difference obviously is that you have to practice with people. For a card trick, you can just sit there and practice with yourself. But whereas that, you have to really learn how to manage people and learning how to, actually distance yourself and blocking and all that. But it's one of those tricks that I think is it's almost fail proof if you follow it as you've explained it.
And well, the thing there is as well is, practicing. I always get asked, how can you practice mentalism? And this maybe is a good place to segue and just talk about that, because it's the same thing. When anything's script related, choreography based, and lines to remember, it's hard without having friends and family to practice, or people that are going to let you practice, right? So what I always used to do is sit at a table with a series of empty chairs. No matter what I were practicing, I'd perform to this person as if they were there and answer as if they were there, but as if they were very giving and accommodating. And then I'd go down the line and imagine this person were relatively giving and accommodating. Then move down the line and this person's middle of the line. Then I'd move down to this person and say this person's a little bit more of a skeptic. Then move down to this person, and I'd prepare every single eventuality. So then what had happened is every performance became almost an equivocate.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I started interacting with the person across from me, I'd know which performance to execute or how, because I'd be able to deal with every one of those situations. And I didn't actually need people in those chairs to practice. So hopefully that, answers your question. Tim Bardsley asks, he says he's a small-time magician who performs for friends and in pubs, which are the best environments to perform because you cut your teeth. I cut my teeth in working men's clubs. But he's talking about how does he get over his nerves when he's performing on something like Britain's Got Talent, which he intends to do next year. And the honest answer to that is, if you're going on a show like Britain's Got Talent, don't shy away from being nervous. My advice would be, and this is going to sound ridiculous, is lean into that character. So if you know that you're going to be nervous, the advice I'd give somebody if I were consulting, and bearing in mind, like, just to give you my background on this stuff, I've worked on BGT a couple of times, I've worked on America's Got Talent a couple of times, I've worked on India's Got Talent, Poland's Got Talent, Italy's Got Talent. So I worked on a lot of different talent shows. More than that, I did some other things in Italy as well. And I always say, whatever your character is, lean into it. Don't shy away from it. And it's one of these things that I find people doing all the time. In soccer, you wouldn't take a goalie and put them in midfield. So if you know you're going to be nervous, then be nervous and make that part of your character. If you have to break down on stage and recompose your nerves, what's going to happen there is the audience are going to be with you and backing you to succeed. Everybody loves an underdog. I'm not saying to the point that it becomes detracting, but find that balance where you're leaning into that character and you're leaning into that vulnerability. And if it means that I'm not going to say who I were consulting for, but I got them to go on stage. And when they were on stage, the very first thing that I said is, look, when I wouldn't let the producers ask this person questions because they kept welling up and I was like, I don't want you to ask the questions now. Please come back and ask afterwards. You might think I'm being unreasonable, but this energy that's built up here, I want it to come out over there. And when this person went out on stage, they broke down crying. And that had the judges in the palm of this performer's hands before the performance had ever started, because it conveyed actually how much it meant to this person to be on that stage. That energy wasn't wasted in the back room or in the green room with the producer.
Yeah.
And the producer were very accommodating because we'd gone backwards and forwards and I were always the rendezvous point between me and the act. Right? But it's little things like that. Just lean into your character. Don't be scared to do that.
I think you should look at some Instagram, right? If you swipe on your phone.
Well, we'll just quickly fire through a few more, and then I'll give you the phone to just quick, rapid-fire questions. Okay. I won't drag them out as much. If that's all right.
I'm trying to produce
this. It's all right. So, hi, Pete. About the 8 Kings stacked, is it 100% surefire? Sometimes it fail in the first phase. Thanks for the answer. The 8 Kings stack can't fail, if you remember it. So the mnemonic for the 8 Kings stack, I mean, just answering this as you ask it, is 8 Kings threaten to save 95 queens from 1 sick jack. Right? And then it's cyclically repeated with a chased order, clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds, right? So what you end up there with is something that cannot fail. Because as long as you remember 8 Kings threaten to save 95 queens from 1 sick jack, that's the mnemonic, or 1 sick knave it was originally, but that's how I remember it. I changed this. I won't use it as a card routine. So what I'd always do is substitute those 4 categories. And if you use a stack of any kind, here's a piece of gold that I'm giving you. This is... I love that the same person came in your head as soon as I said that. A little inside joke, a little callback to a conversation we had earlier. But I'm giving you a little bit of gold here. any stack that you've got, if you take those 4 suits, so clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds, and you imagine the clubs as names, the hearts as numbers, the spades as places, and the diamonds as shopping items. With the clubs, what you do is you pick the relative values that are the same as the name. So, for example, 7, Stephen. You can remember that. If it's 10, Tim. It's very easy to change that. Just do that with all the names, right? But now you've got the clubs. So you give me any club.
5.
So that'd be Frank.
Okay.
And the reason it's Frank is it begins with an F and it's 5 letters long. Fred would be 4 because it begins with an F and it's 4 letters long.
Okay.
But you do that with your own. Hearts, you just use the relative mnemonic values of the cards. So for example, ace would be 1, 2 would be 2, 3 would be 3, 10 would be 10, jack would be 11, queen would be 12, king would be 13. The places, find places that represent the numbers. 7 Oaks, 5 points. The Free City, Toulouse, which is 2. Niagara Falls, which is 9. The shopping items all work the same. 10 would be Tennessee whiskey. Jack would be Jack Daniels.
Okay.
Queen would be quinoa rice. King would be king pot noodles. So you see 6 would be Six Flags soup. 7 would be 7 Up. 8 would be after 8's mince. But now when you write those out and then you stack them in that 8 kings order or any stack, now you've got a stack of regular things that operate the same way as the playing cards. So
all mixed up.
And they look mixed up. You can't see a pattern of black, red, black, red, black, red, black, red. So when you spread these out now, as soon as you know that it's, let's say it's the 8 of clubs, you know that the king of hearts comes next. So that's going to be 13.
That's really
You now see what I'm saying? Yeah. 8 kings, 3. So then you know it's going to be the 3 of spades, which is the Free City in China. So now you can do duplications, you can do object divinations, you can do any of your stack work with random items, objects, or things. And that's something I come up with a long time ago, but it's a beautiful way to use the 8 king stack, just to go off on that tangent. Is it good to mix Jedi Lift with Jedi Chalk? Of course. Mix any principle, technique you can. They're paints. And all of these paints and paintbrushes are yours to use however you want. The canvas and the artwork is yours, so just paint it any way you want. What's your opinion on business cards with your information on it? Do you bend tear them for a peak, or is it no-go with business cards? Okay, so there's a very good question about leaving them with a fold's all right. I'd say a fold's all right because you can still see the information on the fold. But one thing that I got taught a long time ago is that when you're working with business cards, don't degrade your brand by tearing them up. And don't degrade somebody else's brand. What I will recommend is always keep a couple of train tickets in your wallet or a couple of receipts. Because if you're going to do a centre tear, a receipt's very good for a centre tear. And it looks like you're just looking for a scrap of paper. Can I borrow a pen, or can I borrow an eyeshadow? And then you work off of that, right? Then if you're going to do anything with a tented billet, which is a folded billet or a dummy, you can give them your business card and they can keep that as a souvenir, which they'll look back on, and you tell them it'll be good luck if they pin it on a board, and they'll always see it. So that answers that question. Can you still buy Attic Salt? No. I don't know if there were a copy that came up online for sale. Maybe if you look at the second-hand pages, they come up very few and far between, but I'd say that's the greatest thing that I've ever written, and it's on par with the PK book. I've learned to making Cyforce is very practical. Okay, so we've already answered that one above. Where do you publicize these streams? I catch it by luck. It would be cool if you could activate the community on YouTube where you can post this information. Every single Tuesday, there's going to be a video like this one, round about this time. So if you want to check in on Touch Base Tuesdays, this is going to be the way to do it. Hey, Pete, what's a piece of media, book, movie, poem that you have found to be a recent source of inspiration? That's Sean McCarthy. Now, I've known Sean for a long time. In fact, Sean has one of the most interesting centre tears, like a really interesting centre tear. I'm not going to say too much about it, but I'm sure that, and this is years ago he showed me this, so, you know, he's got some amazing ideas. So thank you for that, Sean. Anything can be inspiration, whether like the amount of times I'll just stop in my tracks when I see like if I got on my screenshots on my phone, which I won't at the minute, but I'll see something that's posted on Facebook, I'll screenshot it. If it catches my attention, then I know it resonates with my character. If it resonates with my character, I know that I'm going to use it at some point. I just don't know when. And it could be whether it's something in a book, it could be something that I've read, you know, just with a piece of poetry. A piece of advice again for everybody is Philip Larkin's Rule of Thirds. Which is a really interesting poet. And I always live by his rule of thirds. And his rule of thirds is this. 1, is what you're saying and what you're delivering believable? Okay. Now, in magic, that really doesn't matter because it's meant to be non-believable. But in mentalism, I think it's really important that it is believable, even if you want it to come across as impossible. So 1, is it believable? 2, do people care? So do they really give a shit about what it is that you're sharing? Do they care about it? Like, you've got to actively make people want to spend their time listening to you. And the third question is the most important one. Do they still care? After they've left and they've gone away, do they still think about what it is that you did? And that's my recipe for success. And that came from Philip Larkin's Rule of Thirds. So let's keep moving. Bobo, like, we need to catch up, keep in contact. Any tips on memory loss effects? I need one for my new show, Not Real Hypno, some pseudo things. I've looked into Lacuna and Classic Blank. Lacuna's great by Brandon Queen. If you don't know Brandon Queen, his stuff's amazing. Like, he's got some really great stuff. So my thing is this, is look, people can't remember what they haven't seen. And hopefully you understand what I mean by that. But people can't remember what they haven't seen. And also there's something that's really brilliant, and I can promise you this, is there was something that I used years ago. I don't use it so much anymore, but it's whenever anybody tells me that they can't be hypnotized, one thing I always say to them is, okay, so what was the last sentence that I just said to you before this one? Mm-hmm. And they always try to, and then they'll give me the sentence, and I go, no, the one in between that sentence. And they'll go, well, I can't remember, right? And it doesn't have to actually have them remember. You can make a sentence up. If they can't remember it, they can't remember something they've never heard or seen. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing. It's just a little bit of that there. So what inspired me to dive into the world of mentalism? Well, a lot of people don't know this. If you watch the How to Control Minds documentary, it's in there. I went through a real rough patch at home with my family. I lived with my nan and my uncle, and there were a series of events that led to me trapping my fingers on one side of a door and me being on the other side. And I'd say I were pretty good with cards at the time, and I ended up chopping off these fingers, and I were on one side, my fingers were on the other. And my dad, when he were alive, did an interview a few days before he died about that situation. And I never thought that I'd do cards again coming out of that. And I were really in a dark place. I mean, I've never really been depressed per se, but I were in a dark place, thinking that something that had been a constant throughout my entire life had just gone. Mm-hmm. You know, in like 24 hours, I'd lost the one thing that I felt was my identity. And then I saw Derren Brown on the television, and for the first time in my life, I couldn't figure out how this stuff were done. And I was like, watched it, believed that what I was seeing were everything, and just went on and started creating mentalism. Like, and
now look at you.
Yeah, I'm right here now. So thanks. I thought because of the method it would be no good, but always wondering. So Pete, I hope this is an interesting question. What happened to Fraser Parker's Facebook account? What material from Fraser Parker do you use in your work? Say hello to him. I think his Facebook account's still there.
Maybe he blocked you.
But yeah, like, do you want to look at some Instagram ones? Because we've gone through about half of those. Keep the questions coming, because we've got about another 5,000 questions.
Yeah.
It's all right. We'll be quick on these.
This one says Pig Cake is so handsome.
It doesn't say handsome.
It says very handsome. Pig Cake is so handsome.
Can I ask you who posted that comment?
It's Pig Cake posted that. So thank you, Pig Cake. Shout out to you. You should subscribe to him if you're watching this. It says favorite movie apart from Big Fish.
So Big Fish is really hard to beat. And the reason Big Fish is hard to beat is it was the inspiration for Bigger Fish, Bigger Fish 2, and the Bigger Fish Files. If you haven't seen Big Fish, it's a Tim Burton movie, and it's an incredible movie. The stories in there are so incredible. And I love the idea of being a big fish in a small pond and then opening yourself up to being a small fish in a big pond, you know? And could you still... The idea with that film was if you put a goldfish in a small bowl, it'll stay small, but if you put it into a large tank, it'll grow to accommodate the tank. And I always thought that's a really interesting metaphor to represent life. The idea that you can only do great things if you thrust yourself into a place where you're required to be great. So that was what really resonated with me. And also, like, I go back home now, and if I told people some of the stories of some of the things that I've done, people back home just wouldn't believe me. You know, I were in a car in California and we stole Production's car. Dynamo and I were in the front. We had Corey Feldman in the back, driving to Dave Chappelle's private bar in the middle of Yellow Springs. And, you know, being able to say that I'd been to dinner at Dave Chappelle's house, like sat there, and just some of the crazy things that we chatted about. We were jamming and riffing on creating like comedy, being able to skate at Tony Hawk's skate park and watching one of the greatest directors in the world direct skateboarding, and you know, just traveling out here, never thinking that I'd ever be in America, and coming once and now coming all the time, going to Vegas and walking around Vegas and actually knowing people, and being able to say that I'm sitting tomorrow with, or the day after tomorrow, so with Frank Dukes, you know, and being on the phone with Frank Dukes, and being able to just touch base with like people that I never thought in a million years would get back to me, and having direct lines of communication with like some of the biggest names in Hollywood, and being invited to dinners, and like all of those things were just things that I never thought in my life would be possible. And when I go home and talk about those things, people think that I'm just saying it for dramatic effect, right? And that's why the story of Big Fish always resonated with me, because if you've not seen the film, I won't ruin it for you, but the dad tells these tales. Do you know what I mean? And I always just sort of felt like Albert Finney in that story.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I always felt a bit like that, and even more so now. But it's always stayed constant. That Shawshank Redemption's a great film. The Usual Suspects is an incredible film. Um, Recently, we've been on a spurt of, because we're meeting Frank Dukes. I don't know if we mentioned that. Of watching martial arts movies. So we watched like Best of the Best, Best of the Best 2, Kickboxer, Bloodsport. So I love like 80s martial arts movies, but I like them just because they're interesting, and I like that underdog story that, the underdog gets this thrust into this chance or this opportunity, like the Rocky Balboa style story, and then somehow manages to succeed against all odds.
Do
It's
you
the
like
hero's
stories?
journey.
You like stories about the comeback king?
I do like the stories of the comeback king.
Comeback King. That's Corey Feldman. He has a song. You should look it up. It's a great tune. It's a great track. I listen to it every morning for motivation.
Speaking of Corey Feldman invited us to go to Utah and hang out with him and Limp Bizkit, which is wild. Like, imagine that, Corey Feldman sending you a private invite to go and spend time with him and Limp Bizkit.
I'm hyped to Frank Dukes. I'm hyped at the possibility of being in the same room as Corey Feldman, especially with how the past 2 years have gone. So I'm excited just to be along for the ride as your adopted son. This one says, "What's a good book for Billet Peaks?"
So again, I think I answered this earlier. Maybe I skipped over it, but Richard Bush's Peak Encores and Peak Performances. Peak Encores is my favorite. If you don't know Richard Bush, try find a way to reach out to him. Tell him that Pete Turner sent you across, and say to him you're interested in his work, and see if you can get it. I mean, like, Richard is a genius. I hadn't talked to him for a while. Richard, if you're watching this, we need to touch base. Life's been hectic, and if you think that I've not been around, it's just literally because I've been traveling. So
here it says, "Have you adopted Pig Cake?" I guess I already answered that.
we literally call Pig Cake the emotional support
Slave.
Wait, slave or animal?
Emotional support slave, I
Okay.
guess. Just because I'm here doing the dishes, I'm here making tea for Peter.
This is not true. We mix tea.
I make you tea, and as a matter of fact, this morning you sent me a text going, "Hey, who's yesterday? Who's that?"
Who's the guy with the chains from A-Team?
Yeah, and of course I respond, "Mr. T," and you say, "Of course, thank you. Yes, please give me some tea." So
it wasn't this morning. I said this morning, I was like, I'm searching Amazon for a gift for a friend for Amazon Prime. What are those little plastic things called that they put golf balls on?
yeah. So you have a whole. You could write an entire book on little bits that you have to make people give you tea. This one is how to perform Q&A in a lively, casual environment.
Just go and perform it. It's like one of those things that anything that you want to experiment with, it works in a casual environment. But I'd say it's very difficult when your friends know who you are, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, if you're with your friends, they know that they might know that you're not some divine entity that's there to deliver messages. Whereas when you introduce yourself to somebody in a bar and they say, "What is it you do?" You say, "Look, it's really difficult to describe, but I'd say I'm really in touch with my intuitive nature, and I guess I'd probably say that I read people and answer questions that they've got that they want answers to." You can say whatever you want and just ease it in that way. Like,
and in terms of method, there's an infinite amount. You could peek, you could do one ahead. There's just
it doesn't matter. Look, this is the thing. Always focus on the presentation. Like, always work from the end and work backwards. What is it you want to achieve? Q&A. Right, okay. Where do I want to do it? What's the framework of the environment I want to do it in? A social situation. Okay, what's the fastest way to get the question? Okay, now all I need to worry about is answering it. That's it.
Yeah, good bit. Good bit. Here it says, "Thoughts on a project dedicated to zodiac-based mentalism, kind of like PDF number 9."
So I was talking to somebody recently about this, and if I did it, I'd probably call it Zodiac, which is a full act on the zodiacs.
I hate the pun, but yes.
Yeah, I know, but I think those little things are quite nice. But at the minute, like I say, I've only got a couple of things in the pipeline, and that's only just based on necessity, which again we'll talk about at the end of this video. But yeah, maybe it'll happen. I don't know.
This one says, "What is your go-to ACAN? Any card at any number?"
I don't really have a go-to per se because I have a lot of different techniques. With that, I sort of approach ACAN as the trick that can't be explained, but I take into account a lot of the philosophies that Canasta shared, and I say shared very loosely. He performed, and I looked and adapted and learned. But I also love, looking at like Barry Richardson's ACAN. I think that's really interesting. I think that the Think Stop by Hanneman's a really interesting approach. I think Andrew Gerard's got a really interesting approach towards ACAN. So yeah, there's just try to learn a different series of techniques that allow you to perform ACAN in any situation. It'll always serve you well.
Any advice on how to make a progressive anagram?
It's something we talked about in the last video. I did give a quick rundown in Touch Base Tuesdays #2. I will be doing a full video on this at some point on this channel, so stay tuned for that.
This one asks, why do all mentalists look the same? Identical effects, reveals, how to differentiate.
Have a look at the last mentalism episode, and then look at Touch Base Tuesdays #2, because I talked about that. It's one problem that I've got is like, not that I don't think all mentalists are the same. I just think that the formula is something that's proven on social media to work, and the representation of the art that we see tends to be in short form. So it's always just think of a memory, this is the memory. Think of a card, this is the card. Think of a name, this is the name. Because it's short, it hits hard, and people just want to see the reaction. That's it. I don't like that. It doesn't suit me. What I do is I start with the story. And so, why are people the same? That's because they've learned that works, and that they're getting, look, the honesty is they're getting more views than I'm getting. This channel's not monetized, so they're getting paid to do it. There is compensation for them doing that. More often than not, people are making a livelihood from that. So the fact of the matter is that those people are successful in their own right, and because there's some sort of monetary gain, that's why they do it. But I'd rather go down the slow route, the harder path, find a hardcore following for people that want to watch long-form content, and then let the story be king. That's something I've always said. The plot's got to be there. If the plot's not there, then I'm not interested. Just take a look at the Phantom Limb. That's a good example of how I try to make things a little bit different. But I'm not saying that I'm different to anybody else. Look at the core. We all use similar techniques. We're all grounded in some way, shape, or form in similar philosophies. It's just, for me, I'm a big believer in the story, and the narrative is the thing that I love. I don't really care about mentalism because I know I can do that. I'm not saying I don't like mentalism. I'm saying that at its core, what do I know? I know I can get somebody to think of something, and I know I can reveal it. I know that that's always going to be the constant in all of this. How many different ways can I present it? I don't want to play a game of cat and mouse. I want to make the story interesting enough for people to go, ooh, that's an interesting story, right? And that's it. And if I can get them to do that without showing them the effect, then the effect on top of that's just a cherry on top of the cake. So, maybe if people are watching these videos, don't be scared to just experiment.
I think that's a good answer to that. Here we have a West Yorkshireman, which technically could be you, says, how tall is he?
How tall am I, or how tall are you?
I assume they're referring to the one that's abnormally heighted, and by that I mean me.
5'2".
5'3".
5'2". He admitted he was 5'2" the other day.
I said 5'2" was a Freudian slip. I'm 5'3". All right, without shoes, we can measure it. We could do a little video where I get measured.
Well, let's do it for an Instagram short. I bet you it's 5'2".
It's funny that you said Instagram
I want you to
short.
push. I want you to push that hair down as well when you measure. The tip of your hair and don't count. You can't stand on your tippy toes.
God bless you, Peter. Here it says, I miss you, bud. What books are you reading nowadays?
Who's that from?
This is from Bearded Kuma Magic.
Okay. How's it going? It's been a while since we've talked. I'm glad that everything's running well. I saw your message the other day, and if I do come through your hometown, I will be dropping in. Do you know, I tend to read everything. So I'm in this place when somebody releases something now, if they don't send me to read, I'll buy it. I don't mind supporting people. Like, more often than not, I'll find an email that just says, oh, a little gift, and I'll always read it. I love reading stuff on travels. If you're working on anything and you want to send things for me to read, I might not be able to give quotes and testimonies because I get so much stuff. I get Bob Cassidy's plight now. It becomes really hard not to give testimonies to stuff. And sometimes, some stuff that you get sent is just not in the right place for it to have a testimony. And then you feel really bad because you can't give a testimony, but you can give the advice to change certain things, but then you're doing it from your perspective and you find yourself consulting on something that's not yours. But I do love reading it, and it does inspire me. So if you send me whatever you're working on to peterturnermind@hotmail.co.uk, I'd love to see what it is you're doing. But I'm reading everything. Like, I'm avid for knowledge. Like, every single day I have a rule that I try to read one book. I go onto library.com and I've bought hundreds of books. I'm constantly buying books. But that's it,
I'm reading James Bond now.
The Ian Fleming stuff?
Ian Fleming specifically. I feel like anything after him is just, it's not real.
Well, he's great. Ian Fleming's an interesting character. Let's have a look at some of the ones on here. It would be cool if you can make more reactions to your old videos. I watched the old ones with the handwriting and I learnt a lot. Those videos were bad, and I've got more where that come from. I've got probably, well, you've seen all the hard drives in my house.
I've seen the Star Beat. Remember that one, the shooting star one?
I wanted to bring that back. I've got terabytes upon terabytes of footage over the last 15 years of my life. I've documented pretty much everything. But yeah, let's keep going. Let's have a look. We're going right up. There's quite a few. Let's have a look here. That's the Fraser Parker. Will I ever redo the Portugal video? The Portugal video were really the start of everything. And it was just a 10-minute long take. It was the first bit of long form that I've ever done. I don't know, maybe. I've thought about it over the years. Maybe that's something. Someone else said, oh man, they're just identical, same effects. How does one differentiate themselves? That's somebody else. I'm a teenager and I love performing mentalism. This is from Card Trick Academy. But I always get afraid and nervous when performing, so don't perform a lot. What is your advice to get over the nerves and fears and just perform? You answered your own question. It's this. It's like, look, let me give you an analogy that I recently discovered. So my entire life, I've played the guitar and played other instruments, and I can pick a guitar up and I can listen to something, and if I've heard it and it's something I'm familiar with, I can pretty much play it straight away. If I'm jamming with somebody, I can play it. I can always create a solo, and I've always been really confident in any situation to pick a guitar up and just give it a go. Singing's never been my strong point. So singing, it's never been something that I've done. But if you listen to me play the songs that I do sing, like when I pick my guitar up now, like I went to a jam session and I was so nervous, I was shaking. Like to sit and actually perform on stage, singing in front of people, I was like nervous. And so I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I didn't until recently, until maybe 6 months back. And after I'd got up on stage a few times, I realized that actually people don't care. Mm-hmm. People just want to be entertained. People want a break away from the monotony. People want to see a spectacle. And then I started learning the songs that work in key with my voice. I started learning the songs that I actually can sing. You know, you listen to like I'm good at very low songs like the Metallica stuff. I'm good at the screaming songs. So I play to that. I just
make karaoke the other day, Oasis.
Yeah, like I don't mind. See, I jumped straight on stage. Didn't mind one bit. And so just doing it gets you over that. And it's so easy to say that, but I can tell you that that's just what I did, and it works the same in this setting. So just do that. Is there in the world any video of any of your stage show? I would like to see stuff I learned from you in those situations. So the honest answer to that is my stage show. I used to, so I don't do big stage shows. I have done, like if you saw me at like Magi Fest or places like that, that were over 1,000 people. And, you know, I wasn't expecting to perform on that stage, and I just went out and did it. Argentina, I went and did it. But these are more conventions. But I'm not doing 1,000-seater venues. And the venues that I were doing were 100 people when it was stage shows. And recording them, my stage shows are a little bit more private than my close-up material. But even my close-up sets, I don't film that. My real close-up sets, you've seen me doing stuff that I share on the projects, but you've seen me in real life, and it's so different to what I'm doing when I'm releasing material. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that the release material I don't perform. I do perform it, but it has a different dress. And it really fits the situation that I'm in. And the little touches that I've developed on stage, my full stage show that I've got, it's ready to go. And if everything goes as planned, and everything happens the way that it might happen over the next, and there's a chance it won't, then the stage show will be the thing that follows that. And everything that you've seen over the years will be used in that stage show. But the honest answer is that I have filmed my stage shows. I've got videos on my YouTube from back in 2012 when I were doing like 40 to 100 people stage shows. But the stuff is so private. It's like I spent hundreds of hours crafting out little bits with light and little bits with sound and knowing when to cut the lights, knowing that I talked to Mark Shandau about my stage show. And Mark, I mean, you could ask Mark Shandau this if you ever meet him. We sat and we talked about it at length, and the thing he said is it's the best stage show I've never seen.
It's a great testimonial.
Like, because, you know, and I'd invite Mark. Mark would come and watch it, but I stopped doing it. I stopped performing at those environments. I wasn't getting paid enough. Mm-hmm. And then what would happen is, like, I'd go and I'd have to just afterwards deal with, I was doing like little set stage shows for 40, 50 people, and I might have been earning £200, £300, you know, it just wasn't feasible. And then trying to promote yourself for bigger stage shows, you end up giving away tickets, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go down that line where, and there's performers that do it now. They put the performances up for £150 a ticket. The audience is filled with 80% magicians that have brought a +1, and if they can't sell the tickets to make the room look busy, they've given tickets away. And I don't want to be in that situation, you know. Like I want to be in a situation where people want to come and want to watch me for me. And until I've got enough of a following in the real world to do that, then I don't want to put on stage shows. You know, I'm not saying that I don't want magicians there. Like, I'd love for you guys, mentalists, to come along. I'd love to hang out. I'd love for loads of you to come, and we always go out to dinner afterwards. But I'd like a balance between it, not just being a mentalist and a +1. I'd like an equal amount of that to be regular audience members as well. And then, let's say there's 1,000 people there. There might be 100 magicians that come, and we sneak off afterwards, and we all go to dinner, and we all have a little talk about it. That'd be good for me. But at the minute, I'm not in a position where there's going to be 1,000 people that turn up, 1,000 lay people that turn up to come and watch me perform.
I think you're selling yourself a little bit less than you're worth.
I'm not saying that I'm not worth being able to do those shows, but there's nothing more embarrassing than booking out a 1,000-seater venue and turning up and there's 100 magicians that will come and watch you.
Shuffling cards.
Yeah, and then there's like 900 seats that are not filled. And the only way to fill those seats is either to be viral on the internet continually or have a television show or a Netflix show. And that's, you know, I'm very honest about it. Like, I think a lot of people shy away from talking about the things that are not things that are strengths in what they're doing. I have an audience. Look, thousands of people tune in to watch me on these platforms. Thousands of people buy my products. Thousands of people. So that's a strength, and I can share with you my art in that regard, and that's good enough for me right now. Do you know what I mean? But I'm saying if I wanted to do that, then that'd be the way to do that. So Brian says, in Midas Touch, if the person argues, you touch them in the back since speaking, that's fine. Midas Touch is an interesting dual reality where the audience will argue on your behalf. He never went anywhere near you. He did. He touched me in the beginning. He never did. So let them do the arguing and just step back. Remember, the squeaky wheel doesn't always need to get the grease. So what do you think of the Mentalist series? So I like Patrick's approach when he shows off his tricks, but I can't find any information about the Mentalist who consulted the Creator series. So I don't really know who consulted on that. I mean, there were rumours that Luke Jamay had stepped in and went and visited the cast. There were rumours that Jeremy Cambridge had something to do with it. I don't think that were written by mentalists. I think that were written by screenwriters that got consultants to come in and talk to them and show them mentalism, and then those screenwriters went on and created the series based off the back of what they imagined mentalism to be, which is always better, right? Which is always better because screenwriters and actors, there's no cap. So what mentalists tend to do is mentalists will find a method and then paint a premise around that method. Whereas in the world of Hollywood, anything is possible. So you can make Patrick Jane look like absolutely anything that you want, right? So because you can make Patrick Jane look like absolutely anything, it means there's no bounds because there's no methods, which means that the screenwriting will always be better than anything that most mentalists can conceive. But that's why I think it's always imperative to approach it as a screenwriter, design what you want to design, and then work your way backwards to find a way to make it work. And then the last thing is then that you're not compromising on what the best real world example of what your vision is. So to give you an example that's in Attic Salt, and I'd only share this because it's not really a trick per se, but it's just a little bit, a paragraph in there. You know, imagine for a second a perfect pin code divination. I've talked to you about this before, but you're in the Apple store. You've just received word that there's an upgrade for your contract. You're stood in the queue and the woman at the front's crying. And she's crying because she's locked herself out of her phone and she needs to get into it and she's forgotten the password. And the guy behind the counter saying, well, did you back this up onto the cloud? And she says, no. And he's like, well, I'm sorry, but when we reset your phone, like if you haven't backed it up, you're going to lose everything. So you step forward and you say, look, I'm not promising anything, but I might be able to help. And the guy goes, look, bud, like, we don't have time for this. There's a queue of 20 people behind you. Do you want us to flash your phone or not? And in tears, this woman says, maybe you can help. Let's just try it. So you take hold of it and you say, you know those numbers, you just don't know that you know them. Somewhere in your subconscious, you punch them in. And I know you changed that number recently, but you just know. And you walk this lady through a process where you punch in the first 3 digits and then you see her eyes light up as she remembers the last digit and you punch it in and bang, the phone opens. And she's blown away and she's like, wow, like, thank you for that. And the guy behind the counter's attitude's changed, like, bud, maybe we should have you work at this store. Maybe you could teach us a couple of techniques. Now that's the best case scenario and that's never going to happen in the real world. We know that. But let's say you're working table to table. What's stopping you work at this table and say, you know, I always need a confrontation, a situation to get my gears going, to get my brain firing on all cylinders. So I want to try to figure out your phone code. So you go through the techniques to know what that is. After you started figuring out what it is, they lock the phone. You go, look, wait till you see me at a table that you think is particularly friendly, and I want you to come over and interrupt me. And I want you to say, well, if you're that good, magic boy, get me back into my phone. So now you're at this table over here, you're working, you've worked one ahead because you've set this up over here that's going to work over here. You go, you're working this table, and all of a sudden you see somebody lingering around, you perform what you're performing, you look up and you go, you all right? And they go, yeah, you were just at our table, and I've locked myself out of my phone. If you're that good, get me back into it, magic boy. Well, now that serves a purpose. And then you stand there, you smile, you go, okay, well, you know what the code is, you've just obviously forgotten it, and then boom, 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 it opens up, you get the reaction from that person, and then as they're walking away, you say, watch this, and you all turn and watch them go, retell the tale to the people at that table, and all them react. Now the booker's hearing a reaction there, is hearing a reaction to it here. You've got the room that's going off in different directions, and it's like fireworks that are being set off, right? But that's the one ahead, but it's not working one ahead within a method, like a methodology perspective. It's working on a methodological perspective. It's working one ahead between tables, and then still capturing the closest compromise to the vision of that artistic scene that you made in your head, right? And that's what I try to do, and that's what's going to ultimately separate you from everybody else. So next thing is, people have a nice time in conversation. You could show them some incredible thing, but you don't want to interrupt them. Do you think it would be always worth it to interrupt with a mental piece? And then somebody else said that they're scared of approaching a table and they're nervous. So we'll tie those two things together. If you want to go back to the Instagram, we'll do another 5-10 minutes, then we'll call it a day, I think, and then we'll save the rest for the next live. But one, if you're nervous about approaching people, like I said to you, don't worry about it. Just do what you've got to do. Go in there, be nervous. Use that nervousness as part of your character, right? That's that. Interrupting people is never good. But one thing that you can do is you can find somebody that you don't need to interrupt that might be sat on their own. Make sure the reaction's a big reaction and everybody looks round. Now when you are seen with cards or billets or doing something, when you walk past a table and somebody looks up, they might say to you, what is it you were doing over there? Or you can then turn around and at a moment where the conversation's right to step in, and say, I don't know if you heard over there, but I'm going round and I'm performing for people. I want to show you something I'm working on. Would you like to see it? That might be your in. Depends what your in is. You'll have your own script to get you into it, right? But yeah, that answers that.
Fun how much value you provide for what is otherwise a very simple question.
If you want equal value, you can find it at the Pig Cake Magic Academy. We've over 1,500 tricks. Some with cards, some with coins, some with mentalism, some how to just be a dude.
You're not a member.
You'd have to pay me $5.99 a month.
That's the same joke you made last week.
I don't have many jokes.
How about this one here? I think that's a good one, right? How about that one? You got a nice little.
Read this one out to me. Who's it from?
It's from. It says, "Are you single?"
And who's asking me that question?
It's Laura's asking you.
So, Laura's asking me if I'm single. Laura's actually my wife.
Oh, is she?
We're already married. We went to Vegas last week and we got married, and I'm wearing the ring. You can see it right here.
Hey, look at that, boy! Look at that. Nice
I'm married.
Awesome.
So to answer your question, no, I'm not single. Not single. I've been tamed. The beast has been tamed. Pig Cake was saying it to me this morning. Like
Taming of the Shrew.
The Shrew, Dwight Schrute.
What's your favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie.
I have a list of horror movies.
I know you're a massive horror movie fan. I'd have to say that I'm a fan of anything that Stephen King does. But the reason I'm a fan of anything that Stephen King does is because there's always a slight comedic edge to it. But I like Stephen King. I think the original one with Tim Curry is very good. I like that. I like the different horror films. I think the older ones are much better than the new ones. I think the new ones always share a very similar. I think the new ones always share a very similar sort of plot and theme. But yeah, probably Stephen King. The original, not the new one.
I would say Noroi the Curse. That's my favorite horror movie. Here says, do you know Norman Gatsby? Do you know Norman Gatsby?
No.
No?
But I am going to know who Norman Gatsby is after this because I'm going to do my research.
Are you going to be in Blackpool?
I just might be in Blackpool. Let's just say that it might be that I'm in Blackpool in a work capacity.
Oh, nice.
Who knows?
Very teasy. Very
Can't
teasy.
say just yet. Let's just see how the paperwork goes.
Well, speaking of very teasy, you teased that we're working on something.
Yes. So let me tell you this. This is going to be interesting for those people watching this. So Pigake and I very infrequently agree wholeheartedly on anything. Like this look is not a look that I'd want. I'd want to be taller, more hair.
All right. Well, I have a nice Farquaad thing going.
Mullet.
A new age mullet.
Do you know what? When he got out of the shower the other day, and he like his little legs hobbled him into the hallway, and he pulled his hat off, and I just burst out laughing. He says, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "You look like Sinbad." Like he just hobbled in, and he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, your hair's all business in the front and party in the back."
Get to the point, Peter.
Do you know this is? Have you ever seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yes, I have.
So he had his hair in a ponytail the other day, and he looked like one of the martial artists. From
That's a
Crouching
compliment.
Tiger.
That's a rare compliment from your end.
I'd like to say it. But anyway, back onto the news. Like before we get too detracted. Yes. So we do agree on one thing, and the one thing that we agree on is that magic and mentalism should serve a purpose. Like it should serve a purpose. And one of the things that's lacking right now because of Apple is that they've dismantled the calculator. They've dismantled the ability to be able to perform any mentalism effect with the calculators, from the toxic force to any sort of peak device, add a number effect, and any pin code revelation, calendar, anything like that. They've dismantled it. You can't do any of that stuff anymore. So we spent the last few weeks with the beta version of that app, and we've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and we've figured out exactly how we can do a toxic force style routine, exactly how you can do your calendar style routines, exactly how you can do your pin code routines, quicker and easier, exactly how you can use that to do call style effects, word divinations, add a number style effects, prediction effects, and we've done a deep dive into that. And we actually just spent some time jamming and filming it along the way. And yeah, we came up with a project that we're calling In a Pinch, because when you're in a pinch and you need to do those routines, you can take the lines, the scripts, and everything else that you've already learned and just adapt them to this new series of methods that we've got and created, and you'll instantly be able to go back out there and perform the same routines without the restrictions that iOS has put in place. So if you're wanting to get hold of that, that's going to be something that we'll be releasing very soon. It's again, we've seen on social media how many posts. I think we counted like 20 posts on different platforms saying, look, it's ruined everything. We spent hundreds on these updates. And also, just in case you're wondering, well, what happens to the update again? We also did an entire section where there's about 5 effects, 6 effects, maybe more, that don't utilize the iOS updates. And also, to answer your question, Sebastian, these effects will work on an Android. And there's also an Android version of an effect where you add numbers up and you unlock our phone. So there is routines that are going to work with stuff like that. So you don't have to worry if the update is something that's going to seemingly cripple you, because we've got workarounds for all that stuff. So we'll talk about that further down the line.
That's great.
Can I ask a few more?
Good little teaser. I like it. You know, this one is funny from Idle Fish. It says, when can I learn the best predict of someone's crush name in your opinion? So I guess he's asking, how is it that he could find the name of his crush, which is
You mean if somebody's thinking about the name of somebody else's crush? I don't think he wants to find his crush.
Yeah, he knows it. Yeah.
So the best way to do that is just, again, go back over this video of what it is that I've talked about a few times, and it's approach it as a screenwriter. So sit down. Imagine you were writing a television show about a mentalist. Imagine how that mentalist would get into that situation. Think about what the closest thing is in terms of perfection, and then work backwards, and then go, okay, like what's the fastest way to achieve this?
That's a good bit. You always approach backwards.
It's everything. I said it right at the beginning with the marked cards. Approach it backwards with the effect. Get the story, approach it backwards, find the compromise. That's the biggest thing that I can ever give you, is that. It's like, it's been the constant. Whenever I'm working on anything, and I've worked, look, like I'm very proud to say, I'm not going to say what it is, but I worked with a guy called Martin, and Martin, if you're watching this, you know exactly who you are. Martin, we're an incredible acting coach for the likes of some of the biggest names in the world. Ben Affleck, you know, he worked with 50 Cent, he's worked on the Star Wars stuff, he's worked with so many actors as a screenwriter, director, and acting coach. And he has taught me so many things, and one of the things were just that. It's like, look, you approach it this way, this is how you do this, And once you've done that for hundreds of hours, you're just quickly able to do that all the time, you know. But yeah, so that's your answer. Again, just look at it in reverse. Find it the quickest technique that works. It doesn't matter how you get it. Just find the technique that works.
This one says, "Are you coming back to Cali after Vegas?" We're in Cali right now.
Who is this?
This is Chris Reese Magic.
Chris, hit us up. We're in Cali now. I'm coming back. So my wife actually lives in Pasadena. So that's where we are right now. We're out in Pasadena.
Good area.
It's a really great area. We're over in Pasadena, and I'll be here a lot more frequently. I'm here till the 2nd, and then we're both going to fly back. Not me and Pig Cake. Pig Cake's going to join us a little bit later on, but we're going to both fly out on the 2nd, and then we're going to spend a few months in England. I've got a production that I'm working on in England, and then I think I'm going to come back for Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
I've never had Thanksgiving. I didn't even know it was a thing until last year.
It's funny how it said Thanksgiving, and then you immediately ran through that because to you it sounds normal. But I said Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thanks.
No, not thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks. TH.
Some Daniel Madison there.
Was that Daniel Madison?
No. I'm just saying thanks because that's how you say it. And then, hey Pete, could you perform something?
Can I perform something? Do we have anything with us to perform? If not,
I think that's a check. We have a Zin can. We have a Milwaukee Fastback. We have a cup of coffee.
Should we do something on the viewer at home?
Why not?
Okay, so let's play a game. I'll do something with you, the viewer at home, and then I'll do something on Pig Cake. So this is what I want you to do. Whilst I'm doing this, if you want to go get a deck of cards,
I'll do that.
I'll do something on you, the viewer at home. So if you want to play, it's really simple. Sit with your feet flat on the floor. Listen to the sound of my voice, and what I'm going to do is try to transmit something into your head at home. All I need you to do is take your left hand and point it toward the sky like this. Just let your fingers relax, and when you relax, take a deep breath in and just close your eyes. Keep your eyes closed until I tell you to open them. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to imagine something inside your hand. And when I ask you to imagine something inside your hand, I don't want you to go for, say, a remote control or a mobile phone. Nothing technological. It's going to be something more organic. So think of something now. Focus on the shape and the colour of this thing in your hand. Focus on what this is. Focus on what it feels like. And when you've got something, open your eyes and drop your hand. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are thinking of things right now. I tried to transmit something into your head at home. If you went for an apple, you got it bang on. If you went for a piece of fruit, you were close. If you went for a red ball, that's what I thought of before I changed my mind to the red apple. So you did incredibly. Let me know in the comments if that's what you went for. Okay, so I'm going to show you something. Are these open? This is the Missing Piece deck.
Missing Piece deck.
The Missing Piece deck by Pig Cake.
This is my deck of playing cards on a fidget spinner that we got from Tony Picasso.
Tony Picasso.
Yeah.
The card father. If you go to the Magic Apple, you'll respect the pasteboards.
That's what he kept
actually
saying.
sounded like him. That was pretty good.
You did, yeah.
Just grab one out. It doesn't matter what it is. Check one. Have a look at it.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay, so place it face down there for me. Give me your pulse. So, relax. I'm going to take your pulse, and what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to ask you questions, and I'm going to feel for a difference in your pulse. So just breathe casually. Don't try to change your breathing. So don't answer, but just think, is this red? Is it black? Okay, so I felt a big difference on black. This is a black card. Is this a club? Is it a spade? It's a spade. Number card? Yes, a number. Okay, so low value, mid value. Okay. 6, 7, 6, 7, 8. 8 of spades. Is that the card?
It's the 8.
8 of spades, right? But let's do this in reverse, right? I don't want you thinking that that was just a coincidence. So we're going to do this in reverse. So you look away. I'm going to truly take one out at random. Close your eyes. Let the camera see. Move your head over this way a little bit so they can see that you're not looking. Close them tight. This is what we're going to go for. So, take my wrist. Hold on to it. Not getting anything yet? Tell me when you can feel my pulse.
There.
Okay, you feel it there. So obviously this card could be a red card or black. It could be a club, a heart, a spade, or a diamond.
Okay.
It could be a picture card or a number card. right? So if it's a number, just start to go through the numbers like ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
Jack, queen, or king. So take your time. You're going to ask me those questions.
Okay.
So when you ask me, you'll feel it. Ask me if it's red or if it's black.
Okay. Is this card red or is it black?
What do you think it is? Take your time. Just use the fluctuation of my pulse to tell me. Just use your instincts.
It's red.
Okay. So tell me the
Now,
suits.
Is it heart or is it diamond? Heart. It's a diamond.
Okay. So now take your time. Really take your time with this. Count. You go through the values.
Yeah. Okay. So is this an ace, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5? Is it the 4?
4 of
4 of diamonds. Hey.
4 of diamonds. Oh,
Look at that.
straight out of Royal Road to Card Magic. That's a Gene Ugard piece. It's an interesting quick bit that I could just show you right now on the spot, but I could have done some proper stuff. But I think that's a fun piece. I was messing about with that at the Magic Apple, and I thought, you know what? We were talking about the Magic Apple. You brought up Tony Picasso. I thought,
Forced an apple.
Somebody did put that they got an apple, so it's good.
There you go. Thought of a fruit. What the F? That's it's great because what I love about that is when you mentioned Hugard, it's like you wouldn't just gloss that over, especially in something that's so universal like the Royal Road to Card Magic. And it's one of those things that it just fucking works.
And it's so easy to do, and it'll work with anybody. So if you've got Royal Road to Card Magic, jump back through it because that's a nice little effect. Obviously, starts out with just a classic, you know, and my classic's an interesting one. Yeah, I have an interesting classic force, which is I call it a brakeless classic because it doesn't require the use of a brake. Let me show you what I mean. So I'll turn this way. So it starts out with a step. And I push, so I have no brake, like this. As I pan through them, I say, just take one, 10 of spades.
Hey, boy.
So,
okay.
Yes.
God, I hate that, because I feel like I'm throwing you off and you still nail it.
It's just a nice, soft, gentle, take anyone, no matter what it is. Have a look. So, yeah, so it starts out with a classic, and then the rest is inside.
What a tease.
The rest is in Gene Ugard's Royal Road to Card Magic.
Which I think you could do that with anything pretty much, which is just great. You don't have to do it with cards. You could do it with anything, really. So it's one of those bits that is just a pulse and it.
Yeah, you don't have to. You could start with the cards, and once the person learns what it is that they're going to feel, then you just jump into whatever else you want. So where are the calculator effects being published? Do not know yet. We're just literally in. We're literally in a situation where we've just got to decide where we want it to go, and that's it. I'd say there's some real value in there, but I would say that because I'm biased.
Yeah.
But I truly do think that there is value, and I truly think that there's some easy wins. You know, so we'll keep you updated though on that. Let's have a look. Let's go back to this.
All the questions that we ran through.
There's just one more, I think. So even if you got him in the classic, he had no idea until he sees the card. Yeah, you don't see it. Like if I was showing you what my classic looks like from the front down, like let's say I'm showing you it from here, it starts in a step. You look here, like there's literally nothing there to see. It goes like this. You say stop, which would be there. It'd be the 2 of clubs.
Yeah, that's the worst part. I was actually trying to throw you off. I was being an ass, and then you still got me with it.
So yeah, so the classic, because there is no break, it starts in a break and then I air push. And then I just gently classic, and I can do it deep down the deck, nice and soft, you know. So yeah, you can't see that from the front. It's not like there's a big step, and then you're pushing it over. You literally can't see anything. It literally looks like this, and then they take one, and that's it.
I do it facing them. That's my bit. I like doing the bit where you peek at the bottom, so you have them call stop.
Stop
right there. Remember that card?
Yeah.
And then that way it works every time. So that way it's a non-timing force. So essentially, when you see their lips start to move, you push up all the cards, so that's your break, and then point with your middle finger. I've learned that by doing this so many times that you go, I'll think of their card, and then they're thinking of this one, and then you go, all right, so your card is it's a black card, and they go no. And now you go, all right, well, that tells me how you think. Here's another trick, you know? So
another one that you can also do is shuffle them up. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to imagine reaching down and taking a card. I don't want you to move your hands. I just want you to envision in your head you reaching down, taking one out.
Okay.
Right? what I want you to do is imagine taking it, but don't say stop, don't say anything, just let me run through the rest. I'll tell you when.
Okay.
So a second, we'll just see this, right? So just imagine taking one.
Okay.
Don't do it.
Okay.
So we'll do that again. I'll
Mhm.
shuffle them again, but don't move your hands.
Okay. All right.
Because you're going to give it away if you do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just imagine taking one.
Okay.
Got one?
Yeah.
Black card.
Yeah.
Spades.
Yeah.
King of spades.
Yeah.
So you could do it as though they're going to reach and take one and know exactly what it is. And that allows you to just do a face-up one, and then that's a great way in on any card at any number.
Right.
And also, if they say no, you know it's that region that they're taking from.
Mhm.
So then you can do the whole mind power thing from the Kennedy deck,
Yeah.
where you just say, is it black? No, it's red. You cut that portion to the top, and then you go, is it heart? If they say yes, then you keep the hearts, and you're down to 2, and then you just put one on the top. So let's say it's the 10 of hearts or the 7 of hearts. Or you could do this. I'll show you either way I go. So it's that 10 of hearts, 7 of hearts. Which is it?
I'm going to say 10 of hearts.
So boom.
Okay.
If they say 7 of hearts, you just hold it up.
Okay.
Or what you can do, let's say that you don't know which one it is, you can hang the 7 of hearts out the deck and go, did you go for the 10 of hearts? And if they go yes, you go good and tap it in. If they say no, you go, what did you go for? 7 of hearts. And you go, good, that's what I went for.
That's great.
So they're 2 little outs you can use. But anyway, we're going off on a tangent now about other things.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that about wraps it up.
I think it wraps it up well. With a magnum.
So that says so the reverse. Let's have a look. So the reverse force where you told Pigcake which card you picked is also yes. It's not a force in that. There's no force in that second half. They can literally pick out any card they want in the second half of that routine,
Mhm.
and you'll always be able to get them to know what that card is. It's in there. It's called Pulse Stop or something like that. Just
And it's
open.
your pulse. It's literally exactly.
It literally is your pulse. We did this the other day and on another magician, and you were like, I can't believe your pulse did that. And it's not. Not everything's as it seems there. You know what I mean? But it is in there. Spencer Elvis, hi Pete, is Nathan Lindley still around? I haven't seen Nathan for a long time. Nathan, if you're watching this, get in contact. I'd love to see you. I'd love to catch up with you. The Abraxas version 2s, the resurrected version 2s. If there's anybody out there that knows about printing playing cards or would love to do something, maybe this is a question for you. I'd love to redo the Abraxas, the resurrected decks. They all sold out, and maybe another Kickstarter where we get some decks made, because that was such a good thing. And the amount of messages I get, I don't even have my own stock. I'd love to have my own stock. But anyway, listen guys, thank you. Before we go off on a tangent, I will see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday. Good job. I got that. I got that. So now
Yeah, I'll be seeing you all Tuesday.
I got to awkwardly shuffle and stop the stream.
Go for it. Use your little legs.